coming from different countries in Europe and from Oceania, from New Zealand. We have a map that we can show you in one of the next slides. If we can move to the next slides. As I told you, the idea today is to do something very, very quick, not too much immersive, but just to give you some hints, some postcard for what we're doing with Saturn, and then we have some open questions of and answers at the end of these sessions. We are going to start with a brief introduction and speech doing from Daniel Zimmer, and then we'll be followed from the first session, moderated from Professor Sara Favargiotti, University of Trento, regarding some of our pilot cases. Then we are moved to presenting what are some of our tools that we can develop in Saturn and we can share with some interested territories. And after a short break, we are speaking about our theory of change, and we can have some sort of an open floor to present with you, to discuss with you future opportunities of collaboration. As I told you, there are some housekeeping rules. Please switch off your microphone when you're not speaking. You can interact with us using the chat on the right hand side, and you can speak when we have the Q&A sessions. The webinar is recorded in order to give the opportunity to some other people that are not able to attend to listen lessly. And there is nothing more that I can say. Just a remind that maybe someone of you is not aware, this activity Saturn is supported by the ET Climate Kick. We can go to the next slide, please. The following one. This is the map that already presented by voice. So the next one about Climate Kick. Climate Kick is a European knowledge and innovation communities. Is one of the created by the European Institute of Technologies, and this one in particular is focusing in contrasting the climate change through actions of mitigation, but also looking forward to transformation and adaptations. The next slide, please. The agenda, as already introduced, will be, we have some different moderators. I forgot to cite up the moderator of the second and third session will be Dr. Anastasia Nicologianni and Valerio Bruschi and Elisa Morganti. Next slide, please. And I hope that you get the opportunity to have a look to our website, to our video, but the aim of Saturn is just to thinking about the way in which we can recompose the fragmented landscape in which we live, and in particular to create new relationships between not only the urban and rural spaces, but also between different stakeholders. Next slide, please. We have a vision that is the one of reconnecting how it is, but actually was in the past, and looking to the future of our landscapes. And also we have a goal to build a framework that we can, with which we can help the citizens and different actors to contrast the climate change and create a new narrative behind that landscape. So this is my last slide. I thank you for the attention. Then you can see there are some general information about our social channels on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our general website. Each of our partners also, they have their own social channels, so you can learn from our speakers. Now I'm very pleased to give the stage to Daniel Zimmer, that is director of the Sustainable Land Use team between AT Climate Kick. I'm pretty sure he's based in France. I don't know in which part of France he now is located, but for sure he's there, and I'm very happy to give the floor to him. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Alessandro. And yes, I'm in the south of France at the moment. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased and honored also to introduce and welcome you all to this webinar on our project Saturn. So I'm working in Climate Kick, as Alessandro was telling you, and in Climate Kick we support a number of innovative activities that aim to transform deeply the systems in which we are, in which we live, in which we are also producing. So in these innovations, we want to address particularly difficult or difficult problems which are very often siloed in our thinking and in our societies. And one of them is the opposition between cities and rural landscapes. So we all know, even in our heads, that there is this dichotomy, and we think of cities, we think of rural areas, and there are different thoughts, and but it's also different people. Every country has a way to differentiate what is happening in cities and what is happening in rural landscapes. This siloing of the issues we see is not adequate and is posing a number of problems at the moment, especially, and next slide, when we are trying to achieve carbon neutrality globally. It is becoming clearer and clearer that cities need to work more closely with their rural areas, and rural areas also need to be better connected to the cities. This has been exacerbated by the COVID crisis. We see that producing locally, shortening the supply chains, and reconnecting the citizens also with the land use is something that is extremely important for the well-being, for the environmental footprints of our lives. So we have called this sort of approach CARL. And so we to create this as a sort of program, and it's not that it is at the moment constructed as a program, but we are delivering and working on a number of activities that aim to connect better and to also develop the thinking about how cities and rural areas can reconnect in a meaningful and fruitful way. So we want to support cities also in the delivery of the climate and other SDG targets by developing progressively a coalition of cities, but also probably a coalition of rural areas. We need to be balanced in our approach here. We have been working mostly with cities at the moment, but it's clear that regions also and where we can really have a sort of balanced view between cities and rural areas this is something that we need to develop. So what we observe also is that more and more cities understand that their carbon neutrality targets will only be achievable if there is a good coordination between what is happening around them and what they want to transform in their functioning. So in this programmatic approach, what we have started to do is to work on metrics and guidelines. This is especially currently done with the city of Copenhagen on food. We want to pilot new solutions. So we are developing a number of also initiatives like deep demonstrations with a number of cities that connect indeed to their rural areas. We develop also a number of support tools on carbon finance. So how can a city develop a local carbon market or carbon credit market? This is something that we are doing, for instance, with the city of Valencia in Spain. But we are also working on tools that help cities understand what is the biomass available around the city, and what is the value, what are the characteristics of this biomass. And we want to connect and share experiences between cities. And this is particularly where the project Saturn is useful. And you will hear about these experiences in the next minutes. Next slide. So this is just a framework. I don't want to go too much into detail into this, but this framework is what we have been learning so far. It's a sort of a recap of the different areas. You can see 4 main ones. On the ecosystem services and resilience, this is obviously what cities expect also to get from their rural areas. Innovative metrics and finance, I just mentioned them. It's footprinting, it's carbon credits, payment for ecosystem services. It's also boosting local production. This has been again clearly demonstrated by the COVID crisis. There is a need to create new local supply chains to reinforce these connections through innovative mechanisms. And then more generally, there is a need to ensure a sort of holistic and just socio-economic development. We have seen cities willing to help local entrepreneurs, to also provide new settlements for migrants, for instance, in a number of cases, and also to develop circular economy approaches. So this is just a rough framework on which we are currently a number of projects that have been initiated in Climate Kick. In fact, try to progressively populate and have these tools ready also for the cities willing to connect better to their rural territories. So I really am looking forward also to hear the different experiences that will be presented in this webinar. And so I wish you all and wish us all a very good session this morning. Thank you.
Merci, Daniel. Thank you for the presentations. Now, before to go next to the next session, Daniel cited that there are different cities already involved in other activities with Climate Kick. I forgot to tell you that actually we can do an action. Each of us can do an action. You can click on your picture on the top bar of the Zoom video. There are three small dots on the far right hand side. You can say rename. So actually, we can asking you to put next to your name the city or the place where you're living or where you're operating. So actually, at least we can, as we can say, we can also recognize not only who we are, but actually where we are. That is a simple action that you can do it just clicking on the right hand side and make a rename. So I probably could do myself too. I thought my name is already too long. I will put, it's already some Michele, so actually I already done it. So it's a simple action that we can ask to do it so to position yourself. So I'm now giving the floor to Professor Sara Favargiotti. She's the moderator of the first session. She has also the role to keep all the speakers in the 5 minutes we have assigned to them. Sara, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alessandro, and welcome to everyone, also from my side. I will briefly introduce the hubs which are involved in the Saturn research project very briefly, and then give the floor to each partners that will shortly present one specific pilot case in each hubs. So Saturn works with three territories that we call hubs, very differently according to their geographically, environmental, socioeconomic, and political characters. Spatial dimensions, population density, and rural-urban environment are also very different and make the hubs not directly comparable, but rather they offer an intriguing variety of landscapes. Moving from these differences and peculiarities of each territory, Saturn proposed a virtuous narrative to explore the complexity and potentialities in the interaction of urban and rural landscapes that is based on the development of site-specific pilot actions with the aim of being tested locally, but shared and scaled in other territories. All the cases are involved in a variety of factors from public bodies, municipalities and regions, local communities and associations, and also research and university centers, trying to achieve a comprehensive framework of actions and multiple benefits for a variety of stakeholders. So briefly, I will introduce each hubs. Birmingham in the West Midlands is the second largest city and the metropolitan area in England and United Kingdom, with 4.3 million inhabitants in the entire metropolitan area. So the Birmingham hub is working on three different pilot actions aiming at redeveloping and enhancing peri-urban areas of the Birmingham metropolitan area. Through the Saturn project, the hub explored the landscapes and the heritage of the valley with the aim to recover some important heritage, green areas, and enhance through the natural Birmingham plan and input from the community these areas. This case specifically will be presented by Anastasia Nicologianni. Local partners have also developed the food growing program to create synergies between different food networks and engage them in common initiatives or innovative entrepreneurial opportunities. The Gothenburg is the second hub, and specifically the city of Gothenburg is the second largest city in Sweden with about 1 million inhabitants in the metropolitan area. And the Gothenburg hub is working on 4 specific pilot actions connected to the enhancement of urban agriculture, redevelopment of abandoned sites, and education of young generation. The model farm that connect and cooperate through different bodies, the city of Gothenburg and the Region Västra Gotland, will be presented by Martin Berg. And the other cases are working specifically on other topics like the Angered and the Skogome pilot aims to recover peri-urban plots by supporting people in establish innovative business model. The Farmers Incubator is training to increase the number of ecological farmers committed to sustainable land management, and the Lab 190 is strongly related to the recovery of underutilized farmland and enhancing generational change. Last but not least, the Trentino Hub works with the 2 municipalities, the Trento and Vergine Valsugana cities, and 1 territorial community, the Comunità Rotaliana Königsberg, which are engaged, involved, and participate to the Saturn project. All these 3 territories have a total of 165,000 inhabitants, so you can see how different are the 3 territories amongst them. And the common goal of these 3 territories in the Trentino Hub is to enhance ecological value of landscape by developing a network of semi-natural areas that recover abandoned areas. The 4 pilot cases are developed through 3 specific tools: the mapping evaluation of urban metabolism, the definition of alternative model of rural-urban food policy, and the youth engagement. Specifically, the integration of urban gardens and sustainable food networks are part of Nutrire Trento that facilitate the connection between producer and consumers in the urban area. This case will be introduced later by Francesca Forno. So I finished my 5 minutes. I just I want to say that each presenter has 5 minutes to introduce one specific pilot action in each cases. And after the presentation, each presentation, we will have 2 minutes of Q&A and discussion coordinated together with Angelica, my colleague Angelica Prenegonda. I think you can speak directly in the question times, but also writing in the chat. So now I give the floor and keep the time to Anastasia, please.
Good morning, hello from me as well. Welcome for coming to the session. So I'm here to present Birmingham, reside and work for Saturn in Birmingham, and I would briefly discuss about the 3 case studies that Sarah just mentioned. But before, I just wanted to say that Birmingham, there's a huge interest at the moment here, because Birmingham is one of the biophilic cities. So the interest in terms of environmental aspects, the way the city handles the policy and all the strategies in terms of planning and design is changing, as well as with some other projects we're doing in the university, such as the West Midlands National Park and some of the other initiatives. So there is a huge interest in these terms for the whole region of the West Midlands, where our expertise really lies upon the landscape vision, landscape identity, strategic planning, and in general, for the Saturn case, we also lead on the stakeholder engagement and developing methods on collaboration between partners and stakeholders, public and private stakeholders, of course. So the first case you see here is led by the city and is called Naturally Birmingham. So this, I have to say, this is, let's say, a plug-in, a part of a big project for the whole UK from Future Parks, and is designed to help councils and to find sustainable ways to manage and fund parks and other open spaces across UK towns and cities. So Birmingham is part of this. And as you see here on this graph, I know it's quite dense, but what they have produced is that a city, really, the use for it is a city translates its political vision and into outcomes. So how a city could really use their plan, their strategic plans, the policies, the legislation to make them to real outcomes. So the Naturally Birmingham project links those outcomes that you see here to urban green space. How this works? It does work as a cross-council strategic project in general with other different councils, and testing new approaches coupled with people's views and values held at local level through 4 different community pilots. So each one is to be held by a strategic city council. One is Birmingham, and the different themes that you see here is housing, skills, children and health, and also jobs, obviously jobs and skills. So this will help create new policy for the city and find different ways to work in the future, as long as environment is concerned, as long as special strategies are concerned as well. So just a few examples here. For example, you see on the jobs and skills, the concept is to make it a more entrepreneurial city, to boost that. On the housing, to improve nature-based solutions, environmental net gain, equal accesses. And then on health, obviously, improve people's health, connect them with open spaces, or improve the ways, the reasons they have for activity. And also we have one branch for youth or children, so work with young people as well. On the next slide, it gets a bit even more complicated. This is about environmental justice. So this whole idea is that the Naturally Birmingham project seeks to demonstrate that the interface between all those city outcomes and urban green space actually plays out as environmental justice in the 21st century purpose. So you see the environmental justice in the center, and then you see we have Birmingham on the one side and Future Parks Accelerator, which is the big project, the funding body on the other. Then you have the 5 scales on the bottom and the 5 capitals on top. Now, environmental justice will be tested through policy and practice at these 5 different scales that you see, for example, global, national, city, neighborhood, and individual scale. And its effectiveness will be valued through the 5 capitals, so financial effectiveness, manufacturer effectiveness, and so on. The project is divided into 2 different steps, with the exploratory work happening in the co-design phase, also on the left-hand side, and the translation of the findings into new policy or revisions and the corporate systems change through the transition phase. So this is on the other side. I know this is not near enough probably where we should explain in this, but hopefully if you have any questions, we could respond to that. But in general, I would like to say that this is one of our, maybe our major biggest case on Birmingham, having to do with policies and city processes. Now on the next slide, very briefly, I would like to introduce you one of the other case studies, which is, it is the Thames Valley. It's a big region, a big valley on the east side of the region. What does it do and what is the purpose for us in the Saturn? It is a major, this area, it is under a major development pressure for new housing, infrastructure projects, and therefore there's a lot of interest, great interest to many of the authorities in the region, including obviously Birmingham City Council, but this belongs to other boroughs as well. So this is quite rich on wetlands, it has sites very rich in nature, sites of special scientific interest, ancient woodlands, and obviously has a lot of biodiversity. And it also contains areas of outstanding natural beauty, as they're called in the UK. So it is quite an important area in this, from environmental aspect of view. However, and it has actually, it is believed it has a great potential to provide, substantial ecological, cultural, and economic role in the region. However, it is hidden for many reasons and from you by many routes, from motorways, other routes. So it is somehow a very valuable piece of land that is hidden or not really recognized and undervalued as a territorial resource for local populations. So this is another case study we're working on Birmingham, looking into vision and how we could create a strategic planning that will work with such areas. And
thank you, Anastasia, please.
Yeah, the very last one, thank you. Just the last one. The very last one, it has to do with food growing, is the initiative that the city has for Birmingham. So this case study aims to create special vision again, to bring strategies and synergies in between the different food growing networks, and broadening the appeal of urban agriculture, change of local perceptions about the quality of food from the region, as well as obviously helping organizations to re-establish local food traditions. That's from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anastasia, from the Birmingham City University. And now I will give the floor to Martin Berg from the Gothenburg City. Please, Martin, go ahead.
Yes, hello. My name is Martin Berg, and I work for the City of Gothenburg and the Property Management Administration. We have 4 pilot cases in Gothenburg. And I will talk about one of them, the model farm. So next, please. So this is the model farm. This is a drone picture of it from above. This is a place, a big land lease, which the regional agricultural school leases from the city of Gothenburg because they wanted to establish themselves in an urban context or in a peri-urban context. Doesn't look very urban, but it's very close to the city because they want to tackle the future obstacles and challenges with new glasses on them, and they saw that many new ideas came from like urban environment when it comes to agriculture. So the model farm is a market garden. A market garden is a kind of a like farming technique and a model for how to set up your farm and what kind of tools to use and how to sell your vegetables and which vegetables you will produce. And it's based on direct sales to either restaurants or end consumers or other kind of end consumers in the public sector. Next, please. So thanks to Saturn, we have launched, because this is all financed by Saturn, we were able to launch this pilot case last year with Clara Hansson as a project leader and the first urban farmer of Gothenburg. She's now on parental leave, so now we have Ebba Wilhelmsson doing a great job. So we started last year on like a piece of grass that had been used by calves, cow children before for many years. So this was a really big step to create a good place to farm on. We had to do a lot of drainage. Next, please. Oh, sorry, back, I had to say one thing more about that. Yes, so this is one of 4 pilot cases, and together these 4 are forming a what we call a ecosystem for new green entrepreneurs. We want to create possibilities for the new farmers and inhabitants of citizens of Gothenburg to be able to make a farming career. So you can see and learn and touch and feel at the model farm. You can be part of the incubator where you will learn more about farming and entrepreneurship. You can have a test bed at the test sites in Angered and Skogome where you can try out the business model. And we can also, after that, give you a bigger lease if you want to scale up. And we're also looking into this mapping of underutilized land alongside the road from rural Gothenburg out to urban Gothenburg out to rural municipalities like a few 70 kilometers away. So so this is part of a bigger picture that we want to create, a bigger model that can be used either by itself, the different pilot cases, but also like a model, a whole model. Yes, next please. So the mission is to create a productive small-scale farm unit that can provide food and education. The food is now going into elderly care and kindergarten and preschools in Angered, the city area where it is situated. And this is we're doing this because we want to showcase this kind of business model. So new entrepreneurs can doesn't have to invent the wheel by themselves, and they can have a lot more knowledge by their hand when they want to try out their own thing. So and this is also a nice, good collaboration with the agricultural school at this place, because they have, since we started this, they have created the first vocational educational program for market gardening in Sweden. It has been really popular. The 2 courses that has been that they did since they started last year. So it's a really positive thing and a nice outcome of Saturn project as well. Next, please. So this is just to show that we are tackling a few of the SDGs that with this project. You can take next, please. So the timeline is that we were planning and establish it this site last year. We will further develop it and evaluate it this year. And next year, the last year of the project, we will have a handbook ready. This every pilot cases from Gothenburg will have like a guide or handbook used by other municipalities and regions throughout Europe and elsewhere. And hopefully this will be a first step towards a lot more of these kind of farms close to a big market that you can see in cities in the future. Next, please. So a few pictures from the first year, the establishing year. So it's 2,500 square meters in total. Next, please. More pictures. We had a lot of job practicing and people from different educational program coming and do their field studies at this farm to learn this technique. Next, please. So although it was the first year last year, and we started up the farming quite late because I had to do a lot of drainage work, we were able to deliver 1,300 kilos of vegetables, which could be translated into like 10,000 portions of vegetables on a school plate in the schools and elderly care. So
thanks, Martin.
16 weeks. Right?
Try to conclude, please.
The last, please. Next, please. It's the last one. So this is Clara and Ebba, and they say hello to everyone.
Great. Thank you very much, Marty. Sorry for bothering all of you, but this is my job now. So thanks for introducing your pilot case. And now the floor goes to Francesca Forno from the University of Trento. Please, Francesca, 5 minutes for you as well.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Francesca Forno. I'm a professor here at the University of Trento, and I will shortly present one of the 4 case studies that we are actually carrying on here in our hub, within our hub. Nutrire Trento is actually dealing with this idea of finding way to reconnect city with the rural area. And it is a project that was adopted by Saturn that actually helped to push the project very far in the last 1.5 years. But the project formally began before Saturn in 2017 as one of the activities under the Unicità Memorandum of Understanding. It's a fantastic initiative that combines the expertise of the university, the researcher, and the town, the administrators, that are developing within the Unicità Memorandum. We have different projects, and one is Nutrire Trento. Nutrire Trento actually wants to favor the encounter between producers, citizen groups, including cooperative purchasing group, researcher, and administrator. We can go in the next one, and actually is designed around multi-level perspective. So what we really wanted to do is trying to enhance a process that was bottom-up, a real bottom-up process. So before actually the sign of the Memorandum of Understanding, we had several conferences in order to describe the process. Actually, the process is already a scale-out initiative, and I'm very happy that I saw that Gabriele Rinaldi from Bergamo is attending this webinar, because actually the Nutrire Trento imitated, emulated, reproduced what we have done while I was working in Bergamo a few years ago. So we actually launched the project with some seminar, for example, one very important that was very well attended during the Festival dell'Economia, the economic festival that is an initiative here run by the city of Trento. Then we called with an open call stakeholders, starting from the smaller one, really following this multi-level theory that is very interesting also if understood through the theory of change that we will discuss later on in this seminar. All together with all stakeholders, we started to analyze the strengths and the weakness of the local food system in order to find solution, to try to address the problem, finding altogether a solution. And this was how Nutria Trento started to emerge and to be active. The next one. We actually, as we did in Bergamo, we actually work with the three main tools. A multi-stakeholder roundtable that grew little by little. Now it involves more than 40 people, 40 stakeholders. A digital participatory map that try to visualize all the resources that we have in the territory, meaning with that farmers market, solidarity purchasing group, people that join together to buy directly from the farmer, civic gardens, and shops that are actually selling local products. The third tool are co-designed multi-site events. What does it mean, multi-site events? We did one that actually someone of you have attended last November. And we wanted to touch during the conference different places like the university place, the municipality place, but also the citizen place, the square. And exactly to show that this is not something that is top down, but is really building from bottom up. The next one. And really, thanks to all this synergy with Saturn and Saturn research, for example, in this special project that we initiated, we ran under the COVID emergencies, involve Angelica Pianegonda, that you will know in a few minutes, but also Mattia Andreola, that are two researchers that are employed by the Saturn project. We saw immediately after the starting of the lockdown, a lot of initiatives spreading out in town. The farmers didn't know how to deliver their food products, and they started to deliver door to door. So we thought, why not to use the Nutria Trento platform, participatory map, to actually studying the phenomena, but with the idea to reinforcing and actually increasing the possibility to this door-to-door would have continued to operate also after the emergency that we'll hope will finish soon. So Nutria Trento has not stopped during the COVID-19 emergency and has continued to work. We are now after 4 weeks after the starting of the project that involved 50 family and local producer. And what we are actually doing is trying to study all the process, trying to understand which problem have consumer to approach the local farmers. And we have plenty of problems there that we eventually, little by little, within the Saturn project, we will try to solve. I have finished here. I hope I have stayed in my 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Francesca. So we are a little bit late in time, but if there are some doubts or questions from the public, please, we will devote a few minutes. Please take advantage of this moment to maybe ask some more information or question or clarification to our speakers. I don't know if there's someone who wants to ask, or someone is chatting everywhere, writing in the chat.
Daniel Zimmer here. I had a general question for the three cases, which is how these actions, how is the buy-in from the municipality and the elected people growing, or how is this buy-in from these authorities? Is there a big interest, and is it something that really creates sort of momentum in these cities, or is it just at the moment small cases that are creating awareness?
Thank you, Daniel. A brief answer from each hubs, please.
Can I start?
The relation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for your question. I think in our case in Birmingham, what we have done, because it's a very close collaboration with Saturn from the city of Birmingham and the university. So what we have done is actually integrating some of the city's interests in Saturn and vice versa in a way. With the first case study, the Naturally Birmingham, it is actually a city project that we have. Nick Grayson, who is not with us today, unfortunately, which is our partner in the city, has proposed to be part of one of the case studies for Saturn. So with that respect, the interest is growing. The city is quite engaged as well. They're trying to evaluate their own policies and strategies in terms of climate crises, environmental aspects, policies, and how they do that. And I think within Saturn, we're just supporting and helping of these taking an even broader vision or approach in a way. So from the city perspective in that way, I think they're quite engaged. And with the other initiatives that we have, the agriculture and urban farming, as well as the Tame Valley, which is more like a visional approach, we also co-support, let's say, to spread awareness to the public even more. So not just what the city is doing with one of the case studies that we are on board, but also we're having the food section as well as the broader strategy. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, the city of Gothenburg has been devoted to these issues for a long time, and this is part of the work, the evolution of this work, Saturn. So we have a lot of interest from the municipality, which I'm part of, but there is a growing interest from the public as well. And at this moment, we have around 30 different stakeholders, actors on our test beds that is trying out new business models. We have 10 new entrepreneurs in the incubator each year, and we have a lot of interest from other municipalities and politicians wanting to visiting our model farm. And we see growing numbers of like more developed entrepreneurs that have like CSAs in the Gothenburg area that a lot of people sign up to now. And so I think this is a snowball that is turning and getting bigger and bigger, I think, and not the least in the wake of the COVID-19. These issues has been really addressed from the politicians these last few months. I think the interest is big and it's getting better and bigger from the public actors, but also from the consumers and new farmers.
Thank you, Martin. Francesca, briefly, because we have another question.
Yes, just to share the same impression here in Trento, not just from the municipality of Trento, but also from the municipality of Pergine and Piana Rotaliana. They are deeply involved. They have been supporting a lot of all actually our initiatives, and I share also with Martin the idea, the feeling that the interest is growing among family. We had 80 people wanted to join this COVID experiment within the Nutria Trento, and also I'm very happy we are professor that there is a lot of increasing interest among students that want to, for example, practice within Nutria Trento platform, because there is a lot of things to do there, and we really think that this experiment will help also them to realize that agriculture is something that they can invest in also for their future, especially thinking about abandoned land and the idea to grow new projects directly in connection with the already organized consumers.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I give the floor to Angelica to read the one last question, and then we will have some time at the end of the presentation to discuss deeply. Please, Angelica.
There is a question from Lisa that says, is the daily mobility issues tackled within the Saturn project in some ways?
It's a very good question. Who want, maybe someone, Anastasia or Martin or Francesca, just one.
Daily mobility, do you mean like distribution of food?
Sorry if I may add. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I very well know Alessandro, and thanks for this invitation, for this interesting session. I'm asking this in relation to daily mobility because
Okay.
yeah, we are coordinating a project called the Landscape Metropolis. It's another climate funded project. And it is focused on landscape as the main focus for reshaping our mobility systems. So, for example, we do have pilots in Ferrara, which is a city rich of waterways, for example. And the idea basically is that through the landscape, we can try to redesign mobility, intermodal mobility system, not only involving waterways, but also in a way retrofitting bike lanes or railways that are not more used, but through the main focus, which is landscape. So landscape drive us into designing a new, smarter and more sustainable mobility system. So I was wondering in a way that if we can find a kind of synergy among the two projects and that are dealing with landscape as well, both of them. So yes, I would be pleased to know if we can in a way interact in tackling all these issues that are close to daily life of our citizens, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Stopping.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for coming for this interesting question. Maybe Anastasia want to add
I could add something. I'm not the expert for the city. Obviously, I cannot talk for the city. But what I know is that first of all, in Birmingham, we have our own projects on mobility and transport. So there's for sure a synergy there. We could exchange knowledge and information. I would be glad to do that. But as part of the Saturn, as far as the Saturn is concerned, we through the projects I very briefly introduced on the large scale projects, on the vision and the approach, all these include, obviously, I mean, mobility is a huge issue. So we haven't got to the point yet where we say this is where the cycle route goes, but we are tackling it, from a top-down as well as bottom-up approach, saying where are the best possible areas, how we can design a region or city to make it sustainable, viable, and address all the climate and environmental issues. So there is a clear link with Saturn there, obviously, from the design approach as well as the more physical projects that the city is running within that. So obviously, I mean, Alessandro Z could comment, but from our side, it would be very welcome to have any further discussions with you, obviously, yes.
I would like to say that what I talked about before, Lab 190, where we mapping the underutilized farmland, we want to get more people outside in the countryside, living and farming. But another part of that collaboration platform is actually now handing in a application for a project for recreating and retrofitting and creating new bicycle lanes throughout the landscape. So, which is also connected to that people can go and visit farms and have bed and breakfasts and stuff like that. So maybe that could be something to talk further about.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I would like to thank you all the speakers for this brief, intense presentation, and also for the question and the comments. So I will then, I guess, leave the floor to the next session and directly to Anastasia, so to continue with the presentation of the UPs of Saturn project. So thank you all.
Hello, thank you, Sarah. So let's move on, I think, with, what this session is about the work packages Saturn does. And here we're just going to discuss, we have 3 work packages. We're just going to discuss the 2 of them. The first one, which is on the next, sorry, that's the following slide, but that's fine. The three hubs, actually, what they do is, they're trying, as it has been briefly introduced, to exchange knowledge, work on climate emergency, and really support or create new collaborations with cities and institutions that they work in all these areas, like landscape, infrastructure, food security, agriculture, quality of life, and obviously farming entrepreneurship, as Martin introduced. And these are just some of the problems we have. So, for example, we have Birmingham, which is a very dense city, and then we also have Trento, that you have forests and tourist areas, very long and thin areas of marginal areas for food growing, for example, next to motorways, which is probably similar with some of the Greek and probably Spanish environment here as well. So on the next slide, we will introduce work package 1. This is, I have to say, this is a collaboration by all of the 3 hubs, but is led by Birmingham. So it is it is working on the stakeholder engagement and regional design, and also the capacity building. So the aim is really to reconnect the citizens with their own landscape, create a bit bigger and better identity, and engage the public as well as public and private institutions, city level and private corporates or NGOs for that. So the first work package that is going to be, Professor Catherine Moore is going to talk about it in a minute, tackles spatial and visioning, aims to create a framework, and really works with stakeholder engagement and capacity building. So training ourselves as well as our partners and cities that are going to take place in that, collaborate to see and find ways of how these could be improved, let's say, in terms of climate change, awareness, and strategies. The second work package that is going to be introduced from Anna Tarnell in Gothenburg is building a comprehensive and adaptive common framework, and is also responsible for testing and improving the framework of this across the 3 different cities. Well, for now, the 3 different cities. So what does it do? It really identifies land use models and strategies for reconnecting cities to their surrounding areas. The outcome of this is going to be a guide for public and private landowners that is going to be used from the cities or other stakeholders, cooperatives, individuals even sometimes, and create a toolbox, again, for every one of us, like planners, cities, big organizations, and identify suitable pilots that they could be tested across Europe for now, but who knows, maybe in other areas as well. So the second one, it really tackles and tests land use models and works on sustainable development on the ground. So I would just like to give the floor to Professor Catherine Moore now to start with the visioning and Saturn approach.
Thank you, Anastasia. Could I have and welcome everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me to present today. It's a pleasure to see you all, or some of you. Can you have the first slide, please? So I've been asked to look at, to talk to you about the idea of the role of visioning. And so I will use, and it's based on this project that's been running really for the last 10 years in Birmingham. And the idea was to create a vision that would actually overarch all the various strategies and initiatives that are in the region. So it's above the usual decision-making processes, so that decisions are made in order to achieve something that's greater than the sum of its parts. So it's cross-disciplinary, it's cross-silos, it's reconnecting values and ideas, city and rural, culture and nature, and all those other dichotomies that Daniel mentioned. The next slide, please. this involved a lot of work trying to understand the region and its materiality and showing the place in a way that people hadn't seen it before. Because this is what, this is the map, the drawing on the left is a drawing of the rivers and the streams of the region, which you can't see. Many of them are covered. The valleys are there, the topography is there, it's hidden by housing and roads. But it's this sort of thing inspires communities to think that the place could be different from what it is. And actually it shows how all these communities that fight against each other are actually really connected through the topography and the hydrology of the region, something that's been ignored for so long. And these sorts of drawings are helping to change minds, helping people to act and think differently. And that was applauded in a recent government review of the national parks. The next slide, please. So the other thing is to understand how it connects into the bigger picture, how it connects into the SDGs, the UN SDGs, or the New Urban Agenda, and how that we can connect the aspirations of the region into this wider top level in international ambitions, and see the bigger picture. And so it's by looking at a regional scale, you could imagine that this valley in the yellow and blue colours could become an astonishing health resource, and how it could actually give us a strategic advantage that quite literally comes with the territory. And yet, as Anna Cecilia mentioned at the beginning, that's the area that is sort of forgotten and neglected because it's very difficult to get to. So in answer to your question, Lisa, about mobility, what we're suggesting is that at right in the centre of Birmingham, there's a path that connects to the coastline around Birmingham. We're right in the middle of the country here. And of course, it involves thinking about different tax models, different governance models. And this led to the idea of a national park for the West Midlands. Have the next slide, please. So Saturn, we were so pleased to be part of Saturn and to understand how the case studies could support this project and help us to understand in more detail what it would mean. I have to say that initially the students on the master's course in landscape architecture also worked on this last year, and their projects were brilliant in actually showing what could happen. And this is an example of somebody's work here, of Chantel's work. But I think that what the case studies do is, from the Naturally Birmingham case study that Nick's involved in, that's looking at governmental change, institutional change. How do you get people to value the land? How do we make vivid that connection between communities and their landscape, something that's been ignored it's disappeared from the development process entirely. How do we make it vivid and then use it as part of the development process? The growing network as well is really significant in that it can, I think we could begin to deliver local food and and actually begin to have a distinctive regional cuisine and play a part actually reaching up and helping to redefine government policy. And we're working with partners like the Prince's Trust and ITKI, the International Traditional Knowledge Institute, to understand how this can become embedded within the psyche of the region.
Catherine, if you come sum up, please.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
And so as the last slide, please. And so I guess as a measure of its success, this was actually adopted 2 weeks ago. The idea of a national park with the case studies within it was adopted by the West Midlands Combined Authority in their climate action plan for 2041. And so we're talking with them now as to how we can take it further, and the case studies were really significant aspects of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Catherine, I'll just pass the baton on to Anna Ternell from Gothenburg, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end of the session. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and hello everyone. I'm Anna Ternell from Gothenburg Hub. Yes, next slide, please. I am together with Martin and the Gothenburg Hub working on the work package 2 that you heard a little bit about. And it's about building a comprehensive and adaptive common framework and to test and improve the framework in an iterative process. Next slide. The comprehensive common framework, we also call it toolbox, and it's a guideline that in a pedagogic way explains how to increase urban-rural interaction in terms of sustainable land use. The toolbox includes different tools depending on the projects, and the target groups can also vary, but they can be the planners, regions, landowners, entrepreneurs, or the educational purposes. The toolbox is inspired by our pilot cases, but also from best practices and our stakeholders. Next slide, please. So the framework encompasses about 10 pilot cases that you've heard about, and each pilot case includes several tools, and we're looking at the generic with the potential of inspiring other parts of Europe and even globally. So the pilots are very important, but we also have the best practices that we have collected, and these are initiatives other than the pilot cases, and they are both from our 3 hubs or countries, but they can also be from other countries. So they are from other countries, and we have collected these best practices as well. So all the tools we have will be collected in a toolbox, which will be communicated in an accessible way. And the aim is to enable the upscaling of the pilot cases and work towards system innovation. Next, please. Next slide, please. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, the pilot, yeah, it was the previous line, but the pilots you already heard about from the 3 hubs, Gothenburg, Trento, and Birmingham. So I'm not going into those. So you can take the next slide, yeah. And the tools so far that we are working on, well, first of all, it can be a guide, a handbook, a movie, or similar. But in the end, we're going to collect these in a toolbox. From Gothenburg, we are working on a handbook on model farming. We're also working on a guide for land lease model that the city of Gothenburg is working on. We will also develop a guide for capacity building for green entrepreneurs and mapping of abandoned unused land. We're also looking at governance model for urban-rural linkages and system model of the ecosystem, a farm box to hectare. In Trento, they're working on enhance the whole connectivity and a governance model, eco-social digital, and youth engagement and mentoring for business development. In Birmingham, you have the capacity building tool approach and institutional development tools and tracking methods, visual tools and stakeholder mapping. You heard some of these already, so I'm not going into these. I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anna. I would like to open the floor now for questions, please. And I think Marco is going to help me do this, I guess. Please, if you have any questions for Catherine or Anna or in general, I cannot stress enough that we don't want this as Saturn to be a one-way kind of discussion. We want whoever is participating to share their experience to see what is probably the situation in your areas. So please share your thoughts with us, even if it's not a question, might be an opinion or something you're interested in.
You can also just say that after we can give you some minutes of breaks. So actually, although we cannot have a real coffee break to share some experiences, chat each other, because it's not possible and feasible at the moment, then after this very short question and answer, we're launching a small pool that will be very useful for the last part of the presentation. And we have a short break up to 5 minutes to go out, to stretching, to have a drink and so on. Marco, there is nothing coming for the questions?
Hi, Alessandro. If I may, I have a couple of questions.
Beatriz?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Beatriz.
Hi everyone, my name is Beatriz. I'm located in Spain, in the region of Valencia, and I'm part of Climate Geek, working at Climate Innovation Ecosystems. I'm not sure if you remember me, but we met and we talked about this project last December, yeah, in Brussels. And I think that this project is very interesting for Spain because actually we have a national ministry on ecological transition and demographic challenge because we have the so-called problem of this empty Spain in rural areas. And I wanted to ask you about the work package too, when you say identifying pilots and about your strategy for scaling and connecting the project with other countries. If you have considered Spain or if there will be opportunities for collaborating on this. And my second question was regarding the deep demo on landscapes and how is this project connected to the deep demo, if it is, or if you have future plans on this too?
I think, Anna, you're taking the first question and maybe Alessandro G, the second one. Is that all right?
Yep.
Yes. Our purpose is to work on our pilot cases, to be able to present them, to develop the toolbox, and to spread our experiences and methods. So we don't particularly work in Spain or in other countries right now, but the purpose in the long run is to spread these in different forums so that we can share our experiences and our pilots. I think maybe Alessandro, if you want to add, because you are very active in workshops to spread the ideas. But then, of course, when we have the final outcome, we will spread these and share them.
Okay, so I would just say, because maybe some of the people is not so aware what is a deep demonstration, because I know that Daniel maybe can say something in general about what is the logic of the deep demonstration, and he can say something in particular regarding the landscape deep demo. Maybe later, after Daniel has said something, I just conclude something about the deep demonstration we're doing here in Trentino. Daniel, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandro. So in a nutshell, the deep demonstrations are new programs that try to transform entire systems. So we work on value chains. For instance, in the food sector, we work on landscapes, we work on cities, willing to take a systemic and holistic approach for their transformation. And so we are trying to develop a methodology with cities, with regions, with different types of actors to really try to transform deeply a number of systems. So in the landscapes, in particular, we are working on carbon neutrality and how an entire landscape can contribute or become even carbon neutral, and what are the sort of interactions within the landscapes that are critical to move toward carbon neutrality. We are at the moment, so Saturn is not directly connected to what we do in landscapes, but we are working in Scotland in particular with the government of Scotland that has a very ambitious target to become carbon neutral by 2045. So far, we have been considering mostly the rural areas, but indeed, for me, we also have a deep demonstration with the city of Glasgow. And at some point, these approaches need to converge because the carbon neutrality approach needs indeed to look at the interactions between what the cities are doing and what the rural areas are doing. So it will come, but it's not yet the case.
Okay, so thank you very much, Daniel. Just to maybe give, in general, maybe some sort of rounding of what Daniel anticipated. For example, we like Trentino, the Trentino Hub, we are part of another deep demonstration for the forging resilience, and in which we are mainly focusing on rural and mountain territories, but also considering what are the effects of extremes events driven by climate change will affect also other territories. We can say we are focusing on Dolomites, but we know that at the bottom of the Dolomites we can have Venice. We can have some of the most productive area of North Italy. So actually we are just also to, as Daniel said, we are developing new approaches in the way in which creating resilient communities, that it means that we can have a resilient way of living in rural communities, but also consider what are the spillover effects in urban territories. So for example, some of the people attending the webinar today also has been contacted. They have worked with us since last year in these deep demonstrations. But for example, if I just say something, just to connect Saturn with Spain through the deep demonstration, one of our partners, we are also working with Scotland, with the area of Glasgow, but also we are working with Andalusia, with all the region of Andalusia, because actually, and Nouvelle-Aquitaine in France, because these four regions are experiencing in the last years and very recent years, and maybe they are prone in the next future to be really affected from the effect of climate change. So actually, we are also developing some other methods, and that, for example, we are integrating within what we are doing also as clearly presented by Anna in the WP2 activities of Saturn. So actually, this is the space of exchanging, collaboration, and maybe creating something to be tested together. So I will take over the role of moderator from Anastasia. Thank you. Efkaristo, Anastasia.
Thank you very much.
I have to use some Greek words because I know there is a lot of people from Greece attending. So actually, thank you very much for our friends from Greece. So the break was supposed to be 10 minutes. We have to shorten in 5 minutes. So, but before to go for your break, we are going to launch a pool. It will appear. I guess that you're seeing the pool right now. Can you see the pool?
No.
No. So I'm launching the pool right now. You can now see the pool.
Yes.
Yes.
You have more or less like 2 minutes, one minute to complete it. You just choose one topic and one tool on which we are going to elaborate our discussion in the last part.
Maybe we can leave it. Can we leave it for the whole break so people could vote? Yeah, and then we.
I am the person that can close the pool. So actually, we are at the moment something like 33% that are habilitated to vote. So as soon we have all the results, I will close it. But meanwhile, we are coming back at 11:30. Take your time. sorry to interrupt your break, but if someone is not, it seems that most of you are able to see and vote in the pool, but someone maybe still having some problem in getting the questions. It seems that 3 person is missing. In case we can just write in the chat, and then we can also, I will put there the questions. So in 30 seconds, we are coming back from our break. Seems that almost all the attendees still that they don't have the role of host or co-host have voted. So as soon we come back in a few seconds, I will ending the poll. I note that Emilia, she was getting some problems. In case Emilia, if you're not able to, okay, so we got also the questions, the results from Emilia that I will also integrate later on. Also, Emilia, please give us feedback regarding the tools. So 100% of voters, I can end the poll. I hope it will be saved, but in any case, beforehand, I will make a screenshot. So now we are entering the final part of our webinar. I will give the floor to Valerio Bruschi, who is working at AT Climate Kick. Amy is going to tell us something about the transformative capacity of projects like Saturn, as already anticipated by Daniel Zimmer, and then he's going to give the floor to another colleague of us. Valerio, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Valerio Bruschi. I'm working for Climate Kick. As Daniel Zimmer said, we are a community of practitioners that supports innovative projects and have actually a corporate strategy of reaching transformational impact strategy. And the objective of this transformative strategy is to link different projects and actions between public and private actors. So this is why we see a bit Saturn as a small climate kick, and this is where we see a real potential of transformational impact. One thing I would like to introduce before giving the floor is everything that concerns the why we're doing this and what is the actually the action and the way forward to influence positively people around these type of actions. So we have been working, listening to our colleagues, explaining why we're doing this. And so now how can we put in practice and try to talk to the relevant authorities and actually influence them to see actually the vision and the fact that we can implement this vision. one thing that we have been working on is the capacity building around the Saturn project and its potentiality. And the fact that we as a group could work on a vision and in a theory of change, a mood, let's say, this can give the opportunity to the local stakeholders and authorities that take decision on a certain localization to actually see what can be implemented in the long term. So the communication around why we're doing this and the fact that we can give a vision to these persons on how we can implement this. So building actually a narrative around what is the long-term impact that we can reach and linking this with the tests, the satellites and the tests we're doing on the ground. This is really a key turning point in this in those activities, because it means that we are actually integrating concretely the projects that are on the ground and the people towards a strategy that can have a positive impact for local authorities. So having a narrative and actually selling this narrative as the way forward to a positive transformation on the ground. So this is a work we have been developing all together with a collaboration of one of the other project called Motion, that we will have a presentation just after me, and I hope that you could see a bit the idea of how integrating a narrative and the projects together can have a sort of stronger action towards this our targets. So I will give the floor to my colleague that will make a presentation around the work that we have been doing until now.
Thanks, Valerio, and hi everyone. My name is Christoph Brodnik from the Austrian Institute of Technology, based in Vienna, Austria. The next slide, please. And I'll just briefly tell you how we are helping. We're an acceleratory project, let's say. We work for the project Motion. We are attaching to Saturn sort of from the outside, but working very closely with all the people in Saturn to co-develop, and through this co-developing process, support Saturn. And what Valerio just said, this narrative, this strategic element of influencing decision makers is actually one of the major support that we hopefully provide to Saturn over the course of the project duration of Motion till 2021. So we do this how? We do this by developing a theory of change. And with this theory of change that we co-develop with Saturn, we strategize and assess systemic impact. But importantly, we also develop a communication tool, a framework for how you can communicate the purpose and the actions of that project. What the theory of change also enables the project is to actually develop a monitoring and evaluation process, so get better along the way. And this is not for accountability reasons, this is really for learning and for prioritizing. And I've mentioned this before, and I want to stress this again here. We do this not from the outside as an external consultant or something like this. We really co-create this with the people of Saturn. Through that, we also hope to build the internal capacity of the building, of the people, because this approach of a theory of change and a narrative construction tool, let's say, can be replicated elsewhere and can be used in other projects, in other instances, and so on. Next slide, please. Just very briefly, because not all people are familiar with what a theory of change actually is. It's an abstract term. It's a strategy to prioritize actions and the outcomes for achieving a specific goal. It's also a way of assessing progress towards that goal, because you can then attach a monitoring and evaluation framework towards that theory of change. But also importantly, it helps you to craft a narrative. It helps you to communicate the way of how you are achieving your goals. And at the end of the day, you can communicate what a project does to decision makers and to others. Next slide, please. So what is particular about the theory of change that we develop and the elements that we use in that theory of change? It is based on a lot of empirical research on systemic change processes. So there's a long history of research, empirical studies that we draw on. It's transformational change studies, socio-technical transitions, and so on. Don't want to go into the details here, but it's really great and substantial and robust concepts that are also being used by the OECD or by the European Environmental Agency. What we're doing is we're operationalizing and translating these concepts to what does that actually mean on the ground and for a project. And then we are linking the actions or the portfolio of actions in Saturn, very much a portfolio of very different, very diverse actions, to these leverage points that the concepts point us to. Next slide, please. And I want to finish with this, just really a short introduction and snapshot of what we're doing. If you want to get in touch about any of the details of this, then please do so. Here are my contact details. But lastly, I want to mention that this is somewhat generic in the sense that it can be applied to other project contexts too. So it's not just for sustainable land use and land use management. We are also doing this in collaboration with a project that deals with mobility. And we're also doing this in collaboration with a project that deals with nature-based solutions. So green infrastructure in cities. And of course, I'm not doing this by myself as the Austrian Institute of Technology, but embedded in a consortium of other amazing people that are working on this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Actually, as Valerio said, it was really useful to have an outsider view within us, so actually supporting us in reflecting the way in which we changed our theory of change since we have written the project more or less 2 years ago from now, because it was more or less the spring of 2007 and 18. And what is doing right now. We already said that there are a lot of things that is changing and appearing so rapidly. So before to enter to the next and final part, I just ask if there are some questions. Someone want to learn more about what Christoph has introduced? Let me see, there is. Okay, so Christoph just put his contact in the chat box. So as I already told you since the beginning, we are going to record and then post on the website all the recording of the meeting and the presentation and all the contacts. So Valerio, do you want to add something, or maybe Christoph want to add something? Otherwise, we are going to move to the next part, and I'm going to share you the pools, the results of the pools. Valerio?
I think that was pretty clear. Nothing else from my side. Christoph, if you want to add something, you are free to do it.
Nothing specific from my side either, thanks. Just one last point, it's a systemic approach that we're using. It's co-creation and it can be applied to other contexts too. So please get in touch if you have any questions about this or if you want to chat about this further. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you, Christoph. In fact, the system approach is something that is widely used within other climate kits projects, but also within some of the deep demonstration. So I guess now I've ended the pool. I just sharing the result. I hope that you can see the results of the pool. You can see the results of the pool. Okay. So starting with the results from the pool, there will be some of the starting point for our last part of the webinar. Before to arrive to the final greetings and an invitation to our next meeting that we are going to do in the very last 5 minutes, I will give you the floor to Elisa Morganti, Fondazione Hub Innovazione Trentino. She's working with us since the beginning and supporting us, in particular myself, in managing and take the ship into calm waters. And maybe we can start presenting to you the results from the pool and open the floor to any kind of discussion, listening to your voices. We already learned from some of you from Ferrara, from Spain, some interest to get more information, but actually now is your time, the floor is yours. So Elisa, the floor is yours. I guess that you can see the results from the pool with all the participants.
Yes, thank you very much, I all. Thanks to be here in this first really presentation of what Saturn is doing at the level of this big number of cities that are now present now. And you got a lot of the information today. You got a lot of insight, not really insight, but some overview of what Saturn is doing. So I think we talk too much. So I really would like to hear your impression, but not very in the practice of what we did, but more in a sense of belonging, because I would like to know what you think that you can, also starting from the result of the poll, but also we can go over that. What do you think that Saturn can really do for your cities, and vice versa, what your city can, or your experience, what you are doing, can give, can complement what Saturn is doing. So I hope some of you is not so shy to open the microphone and answer to these questions, or you can use the chat. I leave you the possibility to do that now. So my first question is, what Saturn can do for your cities, for your currently practice? Who wants to answer to that?
It seems that we leave you without voices. But some of the points is already written in the formula when you register for the webinar. So actually, someone said that as we learned, new connection, cooperation, meet other like-minded people. We know that along the list of participants, there is not only institution, academia, or public bodies, but also we have some NGOs, some associations, some producers, and so on. So maybe it would be interesting to listen from you, because you are doing daily actions of transformations. Is there anyone volunteer from the, I can say, Mediterranean area?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I should ask to my Mediterranean colleague based in UK. Or
I can start saying. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, nice. Because before it was impossible. But I just to try to open a little bit the floor. Before we have an intervention from a person from Spain, and just to give you an idea, I mean, what Saturn is doing in this moment is also trying to take into account all those kinds of situations that are very similar to those that you find in some other Mediterranean areas, like the pastures, the former pastures that are abandoned, and the forest that it's invading open areas. And we have some places in which, I mean, the landscape is really changing. And for example, this is one point that it's in common with a lot of other Mediterranean areas. It can be a sort of bridge to keep together all these kind of intervention. And it is tied to a lot of these topic that were mentioned inside the poll. Actually, both to the food and system agriculture and also to the blue and green infrastructure, actually. And there is also the space for entrepreneurship and innovation. For example, one of the interventions that is carried out here in some areas in Trentino is to try to favor the fact that small entrepreneurship they recover those abandoned areas. This and this is there is also in this way there is a place also for citizen and youth engagement, and this is something that is quite related to what it's also to those crises that happened, like the COVID-19. It's very I mean, it's very vivid in our memory. I just stop here, but it was just to give a hint of some of the possible thing that can be treated in this kind of cooperations.
Thanks, Marco. I don't want to talk too much, because if someone wants still to talk, say something, just stop me. So don't worry. I I just want to remember, maybe it was not so stressed this before, that one of the main aim also, Anna told us this, but okay, I want to repeat. One of the main aim of Saturn is not to do these things for the 3 apps, but is to share and open the practices, the toolbox, and everything we are learning now, to share this with other cities and with other people that want to use this and want to also give us their experience and their willingness to do something together. I noticed that there is a question on the chat box. So Clement from Maribor, can you, do you want to? Yes, thank you.
Yes, hi. I just saw I had the short presentation from Birmingham, which was quite interesting in the terms of connection with greening the city. Since we are also involved, Maribor, now I'm involved in biodiversities with other 10 cities. And I think this process of transforming and creating vision for a green city, that would be quite interesting, because there is a lot of engagement work, and the framework has to be kind of produced. And I think we might learn something from Birmingham. Not sure how comprehensive it is, because it involves more, as far as I see in this this picture here, this graph, because it's job and skills, children, housing, health and well-being. So, but it looks interesting for me.
Hey, thank you for. I hope
maybe
we can,
there are some tools or something to share. That would be great.
Yes. Okay. In this meeting, we would like really to show what we can propose. But this is a first step for further to stay in touch with us and interesting cities, to see how Saturn is evolving, and then to share the tools that we are creating, and then keep you informed of what are our progress, and also to take from you what you want to share with us. This is very first point to possible cooperation and collaboration on several topics that can be of your interest. I want just to read the question from Daniel Zimmer, that is saying that indeed, this COVID crisis, as also Francesca Forno reported before, has helped us to open eye on the importance of local level. Daniel is asking, can we build on this to scale what we are doing? Alessandro, do you have some answer to this? Oh, you are muted. Alessandro, you are muted.
I will also connect with Clement, Vala Clement, for the comment and the connection, and also because starting from what Francesca has proposed, what they are doing in Trento, we also launched the idea to create a short idea to try to foster local food production in territories affected from COVID, and so we participated to the call, the special call open from Krenakik for post-COVID action, also involving the city of Maribor, some Portuguese partner, and the city of Birmingham, because actually our idea is try to, in this very short time, in 6 months, to understand whatever the approach we use in Trento could be very useful. It will be the right way to also become something more consistent for the future in providing local food to local people, citizens, and public authorities. Some of the activities as other bodies are already doing, but maybe we need to do it under the same umbrella with the same approach, also to be comparable. Then also, I guess there will be something connected about that from Chris. Chris, you're coming from UK, right? You're from Bristol?
Yes, I'm based in Bristol, but working with Anastasia and Catherine in Birmingham, where I live. Just as I've put in the text, that there are lots of surveys going on in different forms around the impacts of COVID on urban farming and growing, and it would be good to share any of those surveys as much as possible, so that we can build a really solid view of how COVID has impacted on urban farming and growing in many different ways.
Alessandra, may I say something?
Yes, you're welcome.
Sure. Yeah. There's Daniel. Certainly, there is the chance to scale it up. There's great interest in the West Midlands from a number of post-COVID scenario groups, including global groups, because they're really interested in how we can use the approaches that we're developing to have a substantive effect on communities that have been hardest hit by the pandemic. And the West Midlands is one of the worst areas in the UK. And so absolutely there is a way that we can do that. I'm happy to talk about it further at another time. Thank you.
Just to say that we are, of course, very open to engage in conversation with you, with whoever also is interested to scale this. Yeah, we should probably share a number of things that we are doing and some of the results, for instance, with the city of Valencia on local carbon credits, and what Copenhagen is doing on developing targets for their food transformation also. So there are quite a number of other things that could be brought to create momentum and also coordinate even better. We have also, as Alessandro mentioned, all the deep demonstrations on cities. I'm sure there is capacity, and we could do something even greater by joining the different forces and probably even beyond what Climate Kick is doing. There are probably a lot of interesting initiatives that could be brought together.
That would be fantastic.
May I say something?
Sure.
I'm Stamatis Kavasilis. I'm from Greece. Actually, I'm from Athens. I live in Piraeus, the harbor of Athens. First of all, I want to say that I like very much that project, Saturn project. And all the time when I hear all the speeches, you know, all the presentations, I always think about Athens. So in Athens, there are many difficulties and many challenges to implement that kind of project. And maybe this is the best thing that I would like to implement a project like that. You know, it's a city at the north side, the south side you have the sea, and all the west, east, or north side you have the mountains. So it's a city, it's a city in a valley, almost a valley, and there are no many spaces or green areas. So I think this project, very good. I would like to do something that I heard about Birmingham or Göteborg or any other city. But I think there are many, many challenges and difficulties in Athens. But I think projects like that's a very good opportunity for cities like Athens with all difficulties. Okay, I will see what happened, you know, how to implement a project like that, but not only in a small scale, but a huge, larger scale in a city of almost 5 million people. Anyway, I would like to congratulate all of you for the presentations. I think it's a very nice project, Saturn project.
Thank you, Samati. Oh,
Elisa, sorry.
Sure.
Can I just push him a bit more? Like as a Greek in the room, thank you very much for participating, first of all, in all the Greek community. But maybe you or any other of the Greek people, would you, as a Greek, I know the challenges, and I mean, most of the people probably in the room might know them as well. But if you have to start from somewhere, and that doesn't go just to you, maybe Mr. Tavares as well, or Thanasis, or whoever else is there in Greece, where would you start from? So what would be the smallest, like baby steps, right? Where would be the tiny project that you would like to start with, endeavor with within Saturn, maybe?
Yes.
It's not a commitment, it's just an idea,
Yes,
right?
I know this, and all the time I'm trying to find out where I could be. That could be, but I think I have some ideas, but you know, in Athens, you know, no space, no green space, you know, many difficulties. I think we can have a baby plan, you know, a small plan to implement something like that. I think nothing is not possible. Some things is possible to happen, and I insist that I want to do that, something like that. I have to think about that, you know.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yes. Yes. Thank
it's
you.
A difficult city. It's a difficult city.
Yes, I think that's also what Saturn can bring to cities that has a lot of challenge. It's a kind to think a new approach.
Yes.
Of how different governance structure can collaborate together, how to really see the linkage between what is the cities and what is the green areas, as you say.
Yes.
This is also a great topic also.
Or free spaces, you know.
Free, yes.
Free spaces also, it's a problem in the city.
Yes, we have great emphasis also here in Trentino, but in all the project on how to really rethink these empty spaces, these spaces to in a sustainable and more integrated way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think really we can move from this. Bring this new approach on how
Mm-hmm.
also to engage, as Anastasia saying better than me, all the stakeholders, and say how to really restart this narrative, this
Yes.
dialogue with the cities and what is
I agree.
the space around the cities. So this is. I noticed that there are also a lot of question coming now. There is this big interest for open spaces, green spaces, landscapes also in New Zealand, and I think the problem is opposite more or less because they have a lot of these spaces that can be valorized in the best way. So Bruno, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, good evening here. And thank you, Anastasia, for the invitation to join this meeting. Well, I think what is motivating us here is really to understand the impact of the lockdown and the COVID-19 that had on mental and physical well-being of people when they were deprived of going to their favorite open spaces, to engage on a walk beyond their neighborhood and things like that. And relying on our experience of being one of the first countries of being free of COVID-19, I think there is lots of interest to understand how our open spaces and our landscapes will be looking like in the near future to accommodate the effects of a pandemic or any other disaster that may be related with climate change or sea level rise.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, yes, this is a new way to valorize what this great richness that is the spaces that we have also in this case rethink their importance also in this pandemic moment, as you say. I have in mind that we also have an interesting topic related to the reuse and revalorization of these spaces that is linked to the rural-urban metabolism. That I know that Marco and Sara in Trentino, they are very expert in this concept. So I don't know if Marco or Sara, if she's still there, want to say something about that.
I don't know if Marco wants to introduce. By the way, oh, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you can go if you want, Sarah. About the urban metabolism, I mean, we are trying to develop a methodology to calculate basically the urban metabolism using the available methods that are actually available in research and at different levels. What we wanted to do is to try to develop a method that could be possibly applied in many different situations, not only in our situation. A sort of method that can be exported somehow to calculate some of the main issues that are tied to the urban metabolism. I mean, it is something that we are actually developing in this period, and our goal is to try to have something that actually we didn't found in the literature, something that was really useful to compare different situations. And this was one of the goal we wanted to obtain with is. And we are trying to use all the data and all the different kind of sources that can be available at the moment but with the sort of idea that it could be possibly used not only in our case but in a more general way. I don't know if Sarah wants to add something. I try to summarize, I mean, the idea, but
just a brief, yes, just a brief exactly, talking about urban metabolism, this connection, this interconnection about rural and urban areas. It's and the metabolism intended in the sense that thinking about and it has it's a conceptual framework, not to intend this system as a dynamic system, as an organism made of flows, of resources, materials, energies, and waste, of course. So this theoretical approach starts exactly from what all of you mentioned before. So analyzing and mapping all those dynamics, all those flows, mainly related to the agriculture and food production, food life cycle, I would say, and but also the physical space, now by saying what are the empty lots, the abandoned areas that became new valuable resources for innovative, productive systems, and how those activities could benefit or could make a benefit to the environment and in a general way, no? By using in a more sustainable way all these flows.
Thank you, Sarah and Marco,
yeah.
for this introduction. I think it's time to close this session. I know that we have, I hope we have stimulating your curiosity, and then I see that some questions are arising like now. Don't stop to ask questions. You can do in the chat or maybe by email, and we'll try to answer your question. I want to also thanks also Gabriele Rinaldi that reported this experience in Bergamo. We will for sure keep in touch with him to know something more, and then I think I will leave the floor to Alessandro again.
You are muted, Alessandro.
Pardon. I am, before to come to the conclusion, I will say if someone of our colleague in Sweden, like Martin Bay or Anna Turner, is willing to say just very few words about what is our next public event to be organized within Saturn. Because Martin Berg has already left. I don't know if Martin. It seems that most of our Swedish colleagues already left. Okay, no problem. I just say you. I would just say that this was the opportunity to meet each other. We know that sometimes doing in person is absolutely more than better. Because actually it's the experience to meet each other, to exchange in a more quiet and free way. And also to be in the real activities and see how the things are done it there. So I mean, the way in which we are planning, the way in which we are moving, the way in which we are cultivating. So it was supposed that last 1 month ago we have to organize our meeting in Gothenburg, but the pandemic forced us to postpone it, the meeting. So at the moment, the meeting is still planned for September, the end of September. You can find all the information on the website. And this is the right opportunity also to get there and get more information about not only what we say during this webinar, but also to see with your real eyes and touch with your hand what our colleagues are doing in the farm, in the model farm, in the incubator, with local stakeholders, with local citizens, entrepreneurs, and so on. So actually, we are going to, when we are going to collect all the information and circulate to you all at the end of the webinar, we are going also to circulate with you. Maybe there will be also the opportunity for some of you to, if there is the most positive scenario that also we can travel and we can be there. Maybe someone of you could be join us over there and to have a look what we are doing over there. And we know that there is a keen interest from many of you. You can see now from the map that actually we are touching different places, also from the southern hemisphere with Wellington. Thank you to Bruno, but also with many other countries in the Mediterranean basin. I said about Matera. We have a lot of places in Greece. We have also Romania and Bulgaria. We have Valencia. We have the Portugal, and also we have the Italian cities. So actually the opportunity now, as we many times has been pointed out in the chat and during the discussion, we are not stopping here. Meanwhile, we are developing and testing and preparing to also launch and be used also in other territories. Our tools, we are aiming and willing to collect best practices. You are aware what we are doing. So actually, if you think that actually, okay, I'm doing something very interesting for Saturn, please do not hesitate to contact us. We have all the contact in the emails and so on. But also we can maybe start, as pointed out also from Daniel Zimmer, to maybe organize some small meetings. In the perspective of Saturn, and the VP number 3 is called for the future proofing of the project. So actually we are already organizing some sustainability workshops. It means that we're going to organize some meetings, most likely will be virtual meeting, on which we are gathering together different actors from AT Climate Kick, the central offices, Climate Kick partners, cities, regions, companies that maybe they are willing to focus on some specific topics. According to what we come out from the open stage today, there are 2 or 3 topics on which maybe we can call for a sustainable workshop. And for sure, maybe we have to start to thinking about the way in which, for example, strengthening the collaboration with some countries in particular. We have a large and good representation from Greece and Spain. So actually, this is one point that I will raise to Daniel and Valerio. We can start maybe reasoning the way in which we can include passing by your premises both in Spain and Greece in a more concrete way that country. We know that Slovenia also is on the forefront with an older demonstrations focus on circular economy. I know that city of Maribor and a lot of stakeholders are involved on that. So actually we have more regions on which maybe we can strengthen our collaboration. Cross collaboration that will be mutual for all of us. That is the point. So just before to arriving to the conclusion, I am very grateful to all of you attending. So thank you, Evcaristo, grazie, danke, Vala, muchas gracias, obrigado, for those one that has attended or talked to those one attended the meeting. In particular, I'm really happy and pleased to thanks all the people. We try to show you almost all the team involved in Saturn. We give the floor to more or less each of us. Someone is still missing for various reasons, but we are here. And in particular, in designing and preparing and launching this webinar, I have to be very thankful to Anastasia, to Angelica, to Valerio, to Elisa, and not lastly to Alessandro B, that you have not seen never during the meeting because he's behind the screen, he's the guy moving the presentation, and so maybe you can switch off your camera and just say hello to everybody. I know that it's okay. It's there in the library, more or less. Is the same library of Gabriele and Anastasia and Catherine. So we have a lot of library everywhere in any corner of the world. And last, before to go, please do not hesitate and don't be shy to get in contact with us. First of all, just closing and sending you to have your lunch or maybe your dinner. I don't know what time is now in New Zealand, Bruno.
At the moment, it's 10:15 in the evening, so it's almost bedtime.
Or maybe to have the last tea.
Wow, Ricky Tuntoy, wow.
To have the last tea before to go to bed, or maybe to go outside to playing with our children, because this is the COVID. There is only the usual feedback that we have to launch for the webinar. So actually, you have some minutes to complete the webinars, and you know, get in touch with us. Go to your next Saturn partner. You know that most of our Saturn partners are pretty so far away, but I know that also there is someone also located in Trentino that is joining us for the first time. So actually, come to us and get in touch virtually. So a few minutes, and then I will close down the pool and say hello to everybody. I know how we can say goodbye in Greek, Anastasia.
Well, I would say see you soon, which is isto epanidin.
What?
Isto epanidin. You could say addio. It's
Addio.
Adios, right?
Adeus.
I would prefer to see people soon, so that's always saying see you later, something like that.
We can say also maybe we can say see you soon. Before to close your camera and mute your microphone, all of you can say in your language see you soon. A presto, grazie.
Ciao, a presto.
A presto, grazie.
Gracias. Bye.
Hasta pronto.
See you.
A presto.
Hasta pronto.
Grazie.
Arrivedere.
Στο επανειδήν ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
Ευχαριστώ.
Ciao a tutti.
Okay. Pooling ended.